Element 14. The path of light it is.
Okay, we're talking about cables here. Making cables is not one of my favorite pastimes, but it's a necessary part of making electronics. And I do like to make electronics, so I often get involved in making cables. And I like to make them as quickly as possible with the lowest cost and while still maintaining a reliable connection. So I don't generally get involved in making really nice connectors like this. This is an Amphenol connector. It's waterproof and it's got a nice bayonet connection. However, what I do a lot of is insulation displacement connectors, because you don't have to strip the wires, you don't have to solder anything. An example is this RJ connector. I have a whole bucket full of different RJ connectors here to make telephone and Ethernet connections. However, I don't do much of that because I would tend to just buy those cables. But they're not all that robust, and they periodically need to be replaced or repaired, so that's why I have that. Next up, we can talk about terminal strips here. They're pretty handy because you can connect arbitrary wires in arbitrary fashion with these things. And for example, here, when I'm running cable through a box into the interior, I want to maintain a waterproof connection. I can use these low-cost glands, which allow me to feed the wire through after they're installed on the case, so I don't have to assemble the wire inside. Now, to do that, I can't use a larger connector like this. It won't fit through the gland. So what I do is typically I'll just use a bootlace connector, like these little bootlace connectors here. They just get crimped onto the end of the wire with this nice crimper, and you can get a great pile of connectors of all different sizes for just $1 or $2. So they're very low cost, very quick to assemble. There's no soldering. You do have to strip the wires before you crimp them. But I like this technique. You can get, heavy gauge wire. You don't have to stock a lot of different connectors. At least not expensive ones. These are all very cheap connectors. And even these terminal strips are quite inexpensive. So I have a bunch of those. And of course I have the type that just solder onto a card, giving me a good way to connect these bootlace connectors onto cards. So that's one of my favorite techniques. But my favorite of all are these MTA connectors from TE Connectivity. They used to be AMP, and they're just a little insulation displacement connector that you can, I happen to have this great little gun. You can just put them in the gun, and you just slide a wire into the little slot down here and pull the trigger, and it makes a great connection. And you can connect many different numbers of wires in one connector of different sizes. These are color coded, so the red ones, for example, are what I use the most for 22 gauge wire. Even the headers that allow these things to plug onto the circuit boards are low cost. So these things are actually a lot more robust than DuPont connectors They're still 0.1 inch spacing, but they actually have a little retention clip here which keys the connector and gives it a very good retention force, and the contacts make much more reliable contact than the DuPont connectors. So I really like these, and this gun is my favorite, one of my favorite tools. It did cost a lot, and they cost even more now, but it was worth it because I use this all the time. Whenever I have a choice to make a custom cable, I'm usually going to try and fit these ones in because they're just so convenient and so fast, and they're low cost. So there you have it. I'm not really going to go into all the other kinds of connectors that you might make. You know, USB connectors, I tend to just buy them, although I do occasionally have to build some kind of special USB connector system. It's usually on a printed circuit board. And you know, all the standard audio video connectors, I just buy the cables, generally speaking. Things like BNCs, again, I tend to buy them. I don't really have the good tools to make BNC connectors or any other RF connectors for that matter, so I'm stuck buying those. But I just thought I'd do a quick video on the kinds of connectors that I use for doing quick connections in a low cost and reliable way.